All right, welcome, everyone. Thank you all for coming. I'm going to take a moment to settle into a comfortable posture. It might be a good thing to do. You might start by noticing where the mind is. What sort of mental state or emotional state is present? And sometimes that answer is right on the surface, but sometimes it's hiding. You need to go look around for that. What's really present? You might notice any agitation or aversion or greed or delusion that is present in the mind. Just taking note of what's there. And then you might let attention rest on the breath, wherever you feel it most prominently. Just receiving. The breath will take care of breathing itself. All you need to do is receive. And the intention here is to let attention rest on the breath. And of course, the mind will do its mind thing and wander off. When you notice that happening, all that needs to be done is to return attention to the breath. It doesn't need to be any judgment or anything along those lines. You're just following the procedure, turning attention to the breath. And if you can do that with a little bit of kindness, that's a wonderful thing to do too. And you might take a moment to take note of some of the things that have been distracting the mind, particular thought patterns or maybe sensations in the body, perhaps a sound that's drawing your attention. There's not anything you need to do with them, but you might set the intention to not pay attention to them, not to push them away. Just when you notice your mind going to one of these distractions, bring the attention back to the breath. And again, just very gently. And as the mind continues to withdraw attention from these other distracting objects, and attention returns to the breath again and again, the mind starts to develop samadhi, collectedness, and the breath starts to take on a different character. It might become more vibrant, richer. And the space in which the breath appears might become more still. There might be a quality of peacefulness to the mind. as the agitation of being constantly distracted by thought starts to subside, what's revealed is the natural peace of the mind. The peace of the mind free from distraction. And as the mind continues to let attention rest on the breath, you might let any sense of peace that you feel expand and permeate the mind. You might let any resistance to that peace simply dissolve. Let's be present. Peace is always present, regardless of what's in the mind. Sometimes it's hidden or obscured, but it's always there. It's revealed when the mind quiets down, when the mind stops grasping. And in these last few minutes, if you'd like, you can continue on with the breath, or you can also simply let go of any doing and let that dissolve into this peace that's always present. And in this last minute, we're just taking this period of time to appreciate the benefit that practice has on us and those around us. And maybe finding some gratitude for being here, for being able to practice. Mm. Well, welcome in again, everyone. Mm. That was a lovely meditation. It's so nice that there's something that we can do, some kind of action of the body and mind that we can take to kind of incline the mind to peace. It's a great gift that we can do that. Notice what happened when we meditated. We sat down to practice. We came to the cushion already upset about something, some pattern of thought in the mind that had been going on for the past hour or day or year. Because we spend much of our life upset with the world in some way or another. But when we sit and practice, and we set the intention, as we did in that meditation, to remove attention from those things, that kind of deprives them of energy, and they start to fade away and to die down. And so as they die down, the upset we feel at the world, the discomfort, that starts to die down too. And what's revealed is the natural peace and happiness of the mind that's free from that sort of thing. And this experience of meditation tells us something about the world. When we're upset about the world, we typically see that in terms of the source is something out there, right? Something external. We may have spent the meditation kind of wrestling with, maybe something our boss said or something. And the typical way to hold that would be to say that, the source of my problem lies with my boss or something like that. Or, if perhaps we have some thoughts about, having a messy room or something like that, we might think that the source of that problem lies in the room being a certain way. But if we look at the experience of meditation that we just had, we can see that that can't be the case, because we had the experience of our problems being a certain way, and our the feelings of upset we had about that dying down, but we didn't change the external circumstances. Whatever your boss said before you started meditation, like it's still the same after you get up from the sit. The state of your room is it doesn't magically get cleaned when you're on the cushion, right? The external circumstances are the same, but how you're holding them or your reaction is different through meditation. And so we see that this thing that appears to be kind of one unitary thing, this one problem, we can see that this is actually two things. It's the thing itself and the response to the thing. And so we can see that kind of directly in meditation if we're kind of very mindful. It's a very subtle distinction, but you can actually see the different thing. You can see the thing arise, and then you can see the response arise a little bit later. But we can also see that in a less subtle way off the cushion. We can think about some maybe small annoyance in our life. Somebody cuts us off in traffic, or maybe doesn't respond to one of our text messages or something like that. We can see the same thing happen at different points in our life, and we can see the response being different. Sometimes somebody cuts us off in traffic, and that's a big deal. The mind gets really upset about that. But other times, the same thing happens, and you can just kind of wave it off. The stimulus is the same, but the response is different based on where the mind is at. And this is true not just of small things, but this is true of everything that we have a response to. Some years ago, I was sitting a retreat at a retreat center by the name of Southern Dharma. And Southern Dharma is a very lovely place. It's way out in the sticks in the mountains of North Carolina. And so I was driving there to go to this retreat, and I was 10 or 20 miles out, and the battery light on my dash went on, which is like never a good thing, but especially not a good thing when you're driving. But it was too close, and I drove the car to the retreat, and I went ahead and sat at the retreat, and the retreat was very lovely, and I cultivated this great and kind of seemingly imperturbable state of equanimity, which was very helpful. That happened because the process of coming home from that retreat was, in one sense, quite difficult. The day before the retreat ended, there was this kind of historically bad storm. It caused lots of flash flooding, and I later learned that many people died, or some number of people died, and the kind of storm was still going on as I left the retreat. And I got maybe 2 or 3 miles out of the retreat center, so still way out in the woods, and all the electricity in my car cut out. And this happened when I was driving on these twisty mountain roads in this downpour. It was going 40 or 50 miles an hour maybe. so the power steering cut out. And if you've ever driven a car without power steering, it's quite hard, especially when you're in a situation where you're doing a lot of turning and you have bad traction and stuff. So that was quite difficult, but I managed to get the car to a stop. And I had the thought, I don't have cell service here, so I can't call anybody. I don't have maps. I don't know where to, I couldn't really get out and walk anywhere. I didn't know where I would go. So I just kind of stuck in this kind of downpour in the cold. And I was just kind of waiting. And, eventually somebody came along and helped me out. And the process of getting my car taken care of and getting on my way took the whole day. And it was, in one sense, very difficult. It involved a lot of uncertainty about what I should do or what was going to happen to me. And so in that sense, it was quite difficult. But in another sense, I had cultivated this great state of equanimity, and I had the experience, like many times that day, of just being fully present to what was there and watching this kind of spark of anxiety come up and try and take root and take hold, but it couldn't. The mind was just like that still, and that okay with what was, that it just couldn't take root. And so the experience on the one hand was quite difficult, but on the other hand was not difficult at all. And if that same stimulus had happened like 2 weeks before, the response would have been very different. I would have been like very worried and very anxious. But I had cultivated this state of equanimity, and so the response was something else. There was no real response. So this is the important thing, that the two things, the stimulus and the response is not determined by the thing. The response is determined in one sense by your state of mind. So we normally try and solve our problems externally, but seeing this truth, this idea that the stimulus and the response are decoupled, opens us up to another possibility of solving our problems by cultivating a mind that doesn't get upset with the world. And this is much better. If we try and solve our problems in the typical way, sometimes we're able to solve the problem. Sometimes we're able to fix the car, and sometimes we're able to, fix whatever the boss was upset about. But not always. We don't always get to do that. We're not always able to do that. And even when we are able to do that, we're still left with a mind that gets upset about the world. And that mind is very creative. It's going to find something else to be upset about. So I started this talk off as kind of mentioning the meditation as something that kind of helps us cultivate this mind that doesn't get upset at the world. And the Buddha spoke about this, but he spoke about something a little bit broader than that. He talked about cultivating a wholesome mind in terms of what he called the 4 great efforts. So the 4 great efforts are maybe, we'd call them like 4 sort of facets of this idea of cultivating a wholesome mind. And so I'll quote a little from one of the suttas. This is SN 45.8, talking about the 4 great efforts, right effort. And what is right effort? It's when a mendicant generates enthusiasm, tries, makes an effort, exerts the mind, and strives so that bad, unskillful qualities don't arise. So there's an element of restraint, like you act in a way such that unwholesome qualities, maybe in this context, you might think of that as the 5 hindrances. So sense desire and ill will and sloth and torpor and restlessness and doubt. So you act in a way that these things don't arise. And somewhat similarly, going back to the sutta, a mendicant generates enthusiasm, tries, makes an effort, exerts the mind, and strives so that bad, unskillful qualities that have already arisen are given up. So taking affirmative action to let go of some of these qualities. And it often takes some effort because these things can be very sticky, as I'm sure you know. But the four great efforts also involve generating enthusiasm, trying, making an effort, exerting the mind, and striving so that skillful qualities that have not arisen arise. And likewise, generating enthusiasm, trying, making an effort, exerting the mind, and striving so that skillful qualities that have arisen remain or not lost, but increase, mature, and are fulfilled by development. And so you might think of skillful qualities of the mind. You could think of different things. You could think about the 7 factors of awakening. So mindfulness, investigation, energy, and joy or rapture, tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. You might also think about the 10 paramis, generosity, virtue, renunciation, wisdom, energy, patience, truthfulness, resolve, loving kindness, and equanimity. I don't know that you need to get that specific. I think we all have an idea of what a wholesome mind is like. You know, the heart is open and is caring for the world, and the mind is at peace. But those are the things that we should cultivate. We spend so much time kind of cultivating ourself and what we can do in an external manner, I guess would be the way I'm thinking about it. We spend so much of our time, on our career, making it so that we can, obtain money to solve our problems externally. We spend a lot of our time, on our hobbies and our relationships and that sort of thing, trying to solve our problems in that way. And it's not that any of those things are bad or anything, but it feels to me like our efforts would generally be better spent cultivating a wholesome mind directly. Excuse me. So we want to cultivate this wholesome mind because the mind is what builds the world. There's a sutra, the Flower Garland Sutra. It says, you should view the nature of the world as created by mind alone. And the way that I understand that or interpret that is that everything we experience is a product of the mind. The perceptions and the feelings and the thoughts that we have are all a product of the mind. And they arise based on the state of mind. So a mind that is unwholesome and full of anger, ill will receive unkind words from someone else, maybe as an attack, and will maybe respond with anger of its own. But a mind that's wholesome and full of equanimity and kindness might receive those same unkind words as just a manifestation of someone's suffering and might respond with kindness. A mind that's unwholesome and full of anxiety and worry might walk to work and spend that walk consumed by thoughts of what's going to happen at work, maybe the big presentation that's going on or something like that. A mind that's wholesome and full of joy might take that same walk, and the experience might be of enjoying the birds and the flowers. And the experience many years ago of being burgled, if that's the word. I was in college at the time, and I came home to find my balcony door open and my laptop and maybe some other stuff had been taken. And I remember that experience being pretty unpleasant because I was responding from an unwholesome mind. I had a lot of fear and some greed and some aversion. So the response wasn't very pleasant. But a wholesome mind might respond to that same set of circumstances or that same stimulus in a different way. There's a lovely story that's told about Ryokan, who was a Zen master. And so the story goes, he's this Zen master living this very simple Zen life in a hut on the mountain. And he comes home one day to find a thief in his hut looking for something to steal. But being a Zen monastic, he doesn't have anything to steal. So the response, which clearly came from a very wholesome place, was for Ryokan to say, "Oh, I'm sorry you've come all this way to find something, but haven't found anything. Here, why don't I give you the clothes that I'm wearing?" Right? It's, clearly a very wholesome mind. The story ends with him sitting naked in his hut, looking out the window and seeing this lovely full moon, saying, "Oh, if only I could give this moon to this thief that visited." Um, but all of our life is that everything we experience in the world is colored by the state of mind that we've cultivated. And so everything touches this. It's pervasive, and also what you do in life too is a product of that mind. The actions that you take flow naturally from the mind state you have. And so if you have a wholesome mind, if you've cultivated that, then your actions are naturally going to be wholesome. And if you have an unwholesome mind, your actions are naturally going to tend to be unwholesome. I think of the cultivation of a wholesome mind as something like the rudder on the ship. The rudder on a ship. Now, the rudder is the ship goes where the rudder points, and so if you've cultivated this strong, stable rudder that points you in the direction of a good, wholesome life, you can weather all sorts of stuff. All the waves and the wind pushing the ship around don't matter. The rudder still points it in the proper direction. It's the same way too, I think, with a wholesome mind. If you've cultivated a wholesome mind full of all these great qualities, all the winds and the tribulations of the world might not be able to push you around. You'll end up moving in the direction of a wholesome life. So a wholesome mind is a mind that builds the kind of world that you want to live in. And this mind of yours is not separate from the rest of the world. This mind of yours is intimately connected with the rest of humanity. It's this seamless flow of thought and emotion from person to person. And in one sense, you can understand the collective humanity as this kind of one mind or one organism, and that what flows from this or what arises, the world that arises from this mind, you might understand that as society. It's our kind of collective consensual hallucination of what the world is and how it should be. And this mind can be wholesome or unwholesome too. So we can look out at the world and we can see, sometimes it is wholesome. Humanity does some very lovely and very wonderful things, but sometimes it's not. You can look out at the world and you can see the war and the naked greed and deception and extractiveness that comes from the kind of economy that we live in. You can see the violence and the hatred and the discrimination, and these things are all born of unwholesome minds. These things are all war is an outgrowth of aversion and hatred. All the kind of unkind and unhelpful things we do in terms of our economy and our those are an outgrowth of greed. And it's not like those have to happen. It's not like we have to be that way. The society born from a wholesome mind would be something very different. It would involve caring for each other. I think it would involve something like turning our great intellectual capabilities on the problems that these human bodies have. Like making sure everybody is fed and housed, and working to take care of the sick, caring for everyone's emotional well-being. And that would be a very different world than the world we live in. And so maybe it might seem like that's far away. Maybe in one sense it is, but it's also not. It's just it's that world would be there if we were able to cultivate these wholesome minds. Mm. A world born from a mind imbued with generosity and virtue and renunciation, wisdom and energy and patience and truthfulness and resolve and loving kindness and equanimity. That's a really nice place. Um, that is the world we want to live in, and that's also the world we want to give to others. And if that's true, it follows then that one should do as the Buddha said. He said to generate enthusiasm, try, make an effort, exert the mind, and strive so that skillful qualities that have arisen remain. That's what I have to offer today. Thank you all.